Welcome back to another episode of History in Your Own Backyard. I'm your host, Susie Selleck. Today we're in Trotwood, Ohio, here at the Trotwood Railroad Depot. I'm joined by Regina Kleinhens. Regina, thanks for having us.
Welcome to Trotwood.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
This is our historic railroad depot, and it is over 100 years old.
I knew I was in the presence of something special. So how did the railroad help establish Trotwood?
In the early 1800s, when this area was first settled, there was nothing out here but farmland. Mm-hmm. This was just Madison Township, which is Range 5, Township 4 in Montgomery County, Ohio. In 1851, the railroad came through here. And this intersection here, where we are, is actually where Trotwood began, except it wasn't called Trotwood at first. Huh. There were actually two different railroad lines that came through here.
Okay.
There was the Greenville and Miami, which became the Dayton and Union, and there was the Dayton and Western Railroad. Both railroads were chartered in 1846, started building in 1849, and both began limited service in 1851. The Dayton and Union went as far as Greenville, and then later it went to Union City, and the Dayton and Western stopped at Dodson and then was extended to Richmond, Indiana. The two railroads had their own tracks. There was actually two parallel, in most places, side-by-side railroad tracks that ran diagonally through Madison Township in these early years.
Right.
Then in 1863, the railroads came to an agreement to share a track, and they removed the second track from this area. In the heyday of the railroad, there were up to 6 round-trip passenger runs each day from Dayton to Union City. This intersection here, where the railroad crosses Union and Wolf Creek, which is now Main Street, there was a pond, which was possibly formed by digging fill dirt to maintain the railroad grade through this low area. The railroad started stopping here. They would get water for their steam locomotives. It became known as Higgins Station because Amos Higgins built a tavern/depot.
That's convenient, very convenient. I would have gone there, just like for the record.
There was nothing else here.
So Higgins, he had the depot and a tavern together.
It was all one building,
okay,
just to the northwest.
Okay. Right.
Another businessman was Louis Pfoutz. Mm-hmm. He had a general store a little over a mile to the south. It was at Post Town. But he recognized the potential of this area, and he moved his store up here to the southeast corner. He would go to town and bring back mail for the local residents when he got supplies in Dayton. Mm-hmm. And then as Higgins gradually grew, he saw the need for a post office. He applied for one in 1866 using the name Higgins Station and was turned down by the government.
Why?
Because there had been a post office nearby named Higgins Mill.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was near Clayton, which is at that time was Salem.
Okay.
So
what'd they end up naming it then?
Well, his daughter, who is Belle Pfoutz Waybright, said that her father had read Charles Dickinson's book, David Copperfield. And he really admired the character of Aunt Betsy Trotwood in the book. So he proposed Trotwood as an alternate name.
I like it.
Well, it was accepted, and in 1866 we became Trotwood instead of Higgins Station.
Thank you, Charles Dickens.
There we go.
Regina, what depots were used in Trotwood?
There was actually several locations here. The first was Amos Higgins building at the northwest corner, not quarter, but northwest of this intersection.
Yeah.
And that building is actually still there.
Really?
Yes. Recently it's been used as a business and a private residence. But after a while, they moved the depot over to a room in Louis Pfoutz's store.
Okay.
That's on the southeast corner where we are,
Yep.
here at the intersection. Then after that, on the southwest corner, it appeared that they used a boxcar sitting alongside the railroad as a depot. But then finally, in 1913, the Pennsylvania Railroad built Trotwood a proper depot. It was about 350 feet to the northwest at this intersection and at the back of 23 West Main.
Regina, how did the decline of the railroad, how did that affect the depot?
Well, the depot served the Trotwood community well over the years, but through the decades, railroad use declined, mostly due to the traction lines and private automobiles. In 1925, we were down to 1 passenger run per day through here. And then in 1931, they quit that. And the depot was probably just used for freight at that point.
Okay, right.
But then in 1940, they shut it down completely. It sat unused for years. And then the Porter family, who had Trotwood Locker, which was in front of the depot,
Okay.
they bought the building and used it for storage.
Okay.
And through all these years, there was still 2 separate railroad companies sharing this line. And each one went through their own evolution of mergers, bankruptcies, and buyouts until in 1983, CSX was the sole operating owner. In 1992, they decided to abandon this railroad line. The last train through Trotwood was March 29th, 1992, and they removed the tracks in the fall of that year. And then in 1995 into 1996, they moved the railroad humps on the roads, Main Street and Broadway. So
what's there today?
Well, before the line was ever abandoned, they started talking about a bike path. After the railroad lines were removed, it became the Wolf Creek Rail Trail, and that is 13 miles of bike path connecting Trotwood, Brookville, and Verona. It was opened in 1994 and paved in 1998.
Regina, how was it moved and then restored?
It started in the late 1970s when the City of Trotwood bought and demolished several unused buildings on the southeast corner. The open space that was created became Old Town Commons. Okay, in 1978, the Porter family offered the depot to the City of Trotwood with the plan that it would become a focus on the commons and it be restored. They took him up on his offer. In 1979, the city passed a resolution declaring the depot a historic landmark. Yes. Grant money from the Montgomery County Community Development Block Grant Program made it possible for the city to move and restore the depot. The Dick Curtis Landscape Company oversaw the moving of the depot. It actually occurred in August 23rd, 1980, and it was done by the Anderson House Moving Company. They were the subcontractor out of Indiana.
Lots of hands on that project.
Well, I guess that's what it takes.
Yeah.
In February of 1981, the depot was accepted to the National Historic Register.
Fun fact.
It was. Now, improvements that were needed during the restorations here included a new floor, a ceiling with insulation, electrical rewire, it had a new roof and gutters, and a paint job inside and out in all the railroad approved colors. Well, they actually built a service building nearby in the same style as the depot, and that was to provide restrooms and water and storage.
Okay.
The plans to move the depot inspired the formation of the Trotwood Historical Society. They incorporated in December of 1979.
Okay.
And the depot was their first focus. A museum was planned to highlight Trotwood's railroad heritage. The museum was open to the public in September of 1982 during Heritage Days, and it has been open seasonally on weekends and special occasions until very recently. The Historical Society acquired 2 cabooses to display near the depot. The B&O Caboose arrived in October of 1991, and the Pennsylvania Railroad cabin car caboose arrived in March of 1992. Both cabooses were sandblasted. They were repaired as needed.
Yeah.
They were painted in approved colors and lettered appropriately. The B&O Caboose was used in the 90s for several years as an office for the Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, that's cool. Regina, what kind of community events have happened that have involved the depot?
Well, probably because of the U.S. bicentennial in the 70s and the improvements being made in downtown Trotwood, a group of citizens began our Heritage Days in 1978. From 1978 to 1996, it was held here downtown and on the Commons. For several years after that, it was called a community celebration, and it was in other places.
Okay.
Then the Historical Society used the depot as a setting to bring Santa Claus to the local children.
Fun.
It was. We also provided cocoa and cookies for them. This continued for 21 years until 2004. And after that, we partnered with the City of Trotwood when they did their Christmas tree lighting ceremony here at the depot with other participants. But our part in that was also Santa Claus, cocoa, and cookies. We also had Dickens Day here, which was organized by the Historical Society.
Okay.
It's an old-fashioned Christmas celebration, and it included a decorated home tour, including the depot, centered here. And it was from 1987 to 2002. There were also other events. Also here at the depot, by 1984, the Historical Society began decorating the depot. We put up garland and lights each year for the depot area, and this has continued for at least 35 years, and we still do it today.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for watching another episode of History in Your Own Backyard. I'm your host, Susie Selleck, here today in Trotwood, Ohio with Regina Kleinhens. Regina, thanks so much for having us here at the depot. It was nice talking to you.
Well, I enjoyed telling you about it.
Well, remember, travel slowly and stop often. Bye for now.